Josh Markey will try to close loopholes, close opportunities for diminish this gap?
Well, I think, and then I'll pass it over because Norris does processing as well and can speak to this. I think, there's everything to be won and everything to be lost, right? So if we're only regulating dispensaries in Oregon right now, and everything else falls under the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program, thank you. Everything else falls under the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program, which really, as Dave said, is a safe harbor provision and not a commercial statute. We are starting from scratch with the edible production. What we saw in the Rules Advisory Committee, not the initial one, but the sort of second stage of the Rules Advisory Committee where they talked about packaging and labeling, and there was almost nothing sweet allowed. Weed tastes kind of gross. Like, if you're eating it, it tastes kind of not necessarily so awesome all the time. And if you don't make it sweet, sometimes it tastes like even grosser. So, you almost had consumables, like edibles, you almost had those where they had to be brown, they had to be labeled like they might explode in your face, and they couldn't be sweet. And the truth is that people eat cannabis for lots of reasons, but one of the reasons they do it is because they're sick. So, why make it so difficult? So I think that the question is, the answer to the question is that you need strong people lobbying to make sure that edibles aren't regulated out of existence. You need people with some common sense and reason who are not well to come talk about why consumables are important. And you need to introduce consumers, other than sick people, to legislators to say, this is how I choose to consume this product. I am going to be a safe consumer, and we are all going to work to keep it out of the hands of kids. That being said, there are very few. Has anyone been in a dispensary here? We're all getting better at raising our hands. So I think that when you go there, somebody raise their hand who's been in a dispensary again. So you've been in a dispensary. What was your feeling about the edible line that you saw?
Well, that particular dispensary had actually a pretty good edible line,
yeah.
But they were only using one person.
Kitchen.
So
yeah.
One kitchen, and so really you were limited to what they produced.
So that's crazy, right? When you go to 7-Eleven, it's not just like maybe it's Nabisco owns everything, but it's not just one company, right? I can go buy Chips Ahoy, I can go buy M&M cookies, I can go buy Oreos. So that's a good indicator when you say this dispensary has a great edible supply and it's one manufacturer. You want an answer to your question, what do you invest in? What business do you go into? What if you're the second edible company? That's a huge market share. So, I think there's tons of opportunity, and with the right lobbying, you can make sure that there's going to be a lot of opportunity in that segment of the industry.
Yeah, so just to point out is the law does allow for processing to creation of edibles. So I think, a lot of that stuff, realistically, lawmakers understand that it's going to be here. We haven't talked about BHO, but this is one of these things that's kind of an issue, but it's not going away, just like edibles aren't going away. Realistically, last session, 1531 got passed. That was in part because there wasn't enough lobbyists down in Salem. And so this session, next session coming up, there will be several lobbyists there from several different trade groups. And I would anticipate, should Measure 91 pass, there's just going to be a lot more lobbyists showing up and a lot more money and interest that is going to go up and protect the interest of people in this segment, because it is a huge thing. And, in terms of what to invest in, edibles is, per unit of THC is a pretty good return on your money, and there's a big demand. And, a lot of people have things wrapped in Ziploc bags and very poorly packaged, and that's something where if you've got a good brand and a good, package, and you're consistent and you titrate properly, you got a pretty good opportunity there. So I think the question was, what's going to stop them from regulating it out of existence? I think that's because it's written into law and it's going to be here. So,
what's BHO?
Butane hash oil.
Butane hash oil. It's a special shatter. It's a special way to extract THC. It's dangerous. Supposedly. So, how do you legislate edibles out? I'll tell you how you do it. You add an additional tax like Washington did. Our store doesn't carry edibles because it is too cost ineffective. Nobody wants to buy a chocolate bar from my store that is $195. And the reason it's $195 is because of the tax structure. So Oregon has it correct on the vertical integration, the ability to have a grower, processor, wholesaler, and retailer license all in one shot, as opposed to having to keep them separate, which is what Washington does. It has made it almost legally impossible to carry edibles for us, unless the one rule is that producers can be processors in Washington. If you're not a producer-processor, if you're just a producer or just a processor, you're behind the 8 ball in Washington, and that is a function of the law. And it's a really terrible function of the law, and it's put us in a terrible spot. And that's what I told them on Monday.
My question is, as far as like growing wise, I mean, legally now, if you're a caregiver or card holder, you can hold, 4 cards, which is basically 24 flowering plants. How is this going to work for a commercial scale? Is there only going to be so many permits that are allowed? I mean, how is that in Washington right now?
In Oregon, the guy to ask is actually standing probably, I guess, what would that be? That would be 4 o'clock right there. He helped write the measure that is now on the ballot. So Dave Kopilak would be the guy who would direct.
Well, really quickly, I mean, in the spirit of our entrepreneurial theme, we did not put any limits on anything, right? I mean, there's no limits. Could the OLCC put limits? Yes. Could local jurisdictions put limits? The city of Portland, they have a council meeting right now, and it was in the news today where they said they were going to limit the dispensaries in the city of Portland to 122 dispensaries. Local jurisdictions can regulate the time, place, and manner of various establishments. So this is continual lobbying at every level of government, but there's nothing in our statute. It's wide open, and we thought that our theory was that that's best for the free market. It's best to incentivize businesses to enter the free market, and the battles will kind of take place at the legislature, at the OLCC, and